Good morning or good afternoon. I suppose it might be different times for different people, so I just wanted to be polite with everyone. Huge thank you to the organizers of this congress for allowing me to participate in it. I would like to present and talk about my communication, which is titled Integrating Speech Acts Theory into Translator Education, Pragmatic Competence through Project-Based Learning. I would like to begin by offering a brief introductory background to some of the key things that we are going to be then talking about along the different sections of this communication. The process of translation obviously extends beyond word-for-word conversion, requiring an understanding of cultural situations and communicative intent. Translators act as cultural and pragmatic interpreters, ensuring messages resonate appropriately. However, traditional training often emphasizes linguistic equivalence over pragmatic competence. This research presentation explores how integrating speech acts theory into translator education through project-based learning enhances or could enhance a student's ability to navigate these different complexities. This theory, the theory around the speech acts theory, developed in the 1960s, at the end of the 1950s, 1960s, highlights the language performs actions beyond conveying information, distinguishing between locutionary, the literal meaning, illocutionary, intended function of the utterances, and perlocutionary, the effects on the listener of the intended message emitted by the speaker. Recognizing and accurately translating these acts seems to be crucial but challenging due to cultural and linguistic disparities. Pragmatic failures, as noted by recent research, can lead to miscommunication in high-stake contexts. While current translation programs focus on linguistic skills, they often lack systematic pragmatic training. Project-based learning seems to be able to offer a solution by engaging students in real-world translation tasks, fostering experiential learning, and refining the work through feedback. Integrating speech acts theory into project-based learning allows the students to crucially and critically analyze the speech acts, ensuring translation maintain functional and cultural fidelity. A qualitative case study examines speech acts theory-based, project-based learning in multilingual public service announcement translation. Using Cope's experiential learning cycle, students iteratively refine translations, improving their ability to capture pragmatic nuances. Preliminary findings indicate significant improvements. 85% of the students identified illocutionary force more effectively. 75% demonstrated increased cultural awareness. And finally, 80% produced translations achieving pragmatic and functional equivalence. These preliminary results confirm and affirm that this combination of speech acts theory and project-based learning is effective in enhancing translation training, bridging linguistic accuracy with communicative effectiveness. This paper advocates for its inclusion in curricula to better equip future translations for complexities of cross-cultural communication. I would like to talk about some of the milestones that cement the theoretical review and theoretical approach of this paper. Speech acts theory has been a cornerstone of pragmatics since its introduction by Austin in 1962 and subsequent elaboration in the decade of the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, up to today. This theory provides a framework for understanding how language is used to perform actions rather than simply convey information. Austin's key contribution was the differentiation between three types of or three forces in the language: locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary. As recent as 2018, Baker highlighted that translation errors often stem from misinterpretation of speech acts, especially in culturally sensitive contexts. Pragmatics is a fundamental aspect of translation training, yet it is sometimes and often overlooked in traditional curricula, which emphasize linguistic equivalence over functional meaning. Pragmatic deals with language use in context, focusing on meaning as constructed by speakers and interpreted by listeners. For translators, understanding pragmatics means recognizing that language is not just about grammar and vocabulary, but also about cultural norms, social relationships, and communicative intent. The role of pragmatics in translation studies include managing speech acts, preserving implicative, adjusting politeness strategies, handling ambiguity and context dependence, among many other situations. Talking about another milestone, another cornerstone, another central pillar to this research, which is PBL, project-based learning. We could say that it is a student-centered educational approach where learners actively explore real-world problems and challenges through projects. It emphasizes hands-on experiential learning, collaboration, and critical thinking development, allowing students to develop practical skills by engaging in meaningful context-driven tasks. Now I would like to offer some insight and some ideas regarding the methodology that we followed in these PBL and SAT project. The translation tasks were carefully developed to ensure that students engage with pragmatic challenges relevant to the real-world translation. The primary focus was on translating multilingual public service announcements, which required careful attention to speech acts to ensure effective communication across cultural and linguistic barriers. The tasks were designed with the following elements in mind: selection of source texts, identification of speech acts, and cultural adaptation strategy. Thinking about the task implementation, and as mentioned before, the translation projects were implementing using a collaborative, iterative approach based on Kolb's 1984 experiential learning cycle. Concrete experience leads to reflexive of observation, which leads to abstract conceptualization, which finally leads to active experimentation. The implementation process involved group collaboration, many drafts, sometimes as many drafts as 5 or 6 drafts for very short translations, and finally instructor and expert, so to say expert, because it was another instructor acting out as an expert, feedback on language, such as professionals provided insights on pragmatic effects and functional accuracy. Regarding data or data collection for this study, a qualitative approach was employed to analyze the students' development of pragmatic competence. We collected data through pragmatic competence and through reflections of the students, peer reviews, instructor evaluations, and final translation analysis. As this was a curricular activity that the students performed in their English as a foreign language, second language class, there needed to be an assessment and evaluation of the project. The effectiveness of these speech act theory-based, project-based learning was evaluated based on key performance indicators, as you can see in the chart or in the rubric on your screens, focusing on cementing the evaluation on accuracy in identifying speech acts, effectiveness in maintaining perlocutionary effects, and improvement in cultural adaptation strategies. Now we can talk about some of the preliminary results that this study can offer. A major outcome of this study was the significant improvement in students' ability to identify speech acts within sources of text. 85% of the students showed marked progress in recognizing the different components of a speech acts, including locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary acts. This improvement was particularly evident in students' ability to distinguish between direct and indirect requests, which are often challenging in translation due to the complex and socially, established cultural implications. Peer-reviewed feedback and collaborative discussions played a pivotal role in reflecting students' analytical skills. Some of the key observations in this first result lead us to understand that there is a stronger differentiation between speech acts, as students demonstrated an enhanced ability to differentiate between locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary forces. Students were also capable of recognizing culturally embedded speech acts. The students became more proficient in recognizing culturally dependent speech acts, such as honorifics or indirect politeness strategies. And also, another key observation was justifying translation choices. As students improved their ability to justify their own choices for translation based on communicative contexts. Second result is cemented in the idea of identifying and being able of having ideas of the implication for translation education. The ability to identify the speech arcs is fundamental to translation training, as it directly influences the accuracy and appropriateness of the translations they produced. In your screens, you have summarizing chart of this result. When we talk about the second of the assessment idea, which is also the second of the results that we extract from this study, the idea of maintaining the perlocutionary effect, that is ensuring that the intended response or effect of the source text is achieved in the target language. It was one of the most challenging aspects of the translation process. 80% of the final translation successfully preserved the original intent, compared to 50% of the initial drafts, which were not corrected or not included in the PBL project. This improvement is attributed to revisions and feedback from both peers and experts, remember the guiding experts, which guided the students in making adjustments to tone, politeness level, and structural shifts. Key observations that we extract from this second research result: adaptation of request and awareness. Students successfully adapted directives such as requests and warning, ensuring that these acts were culturally appropriate for the target audience. They were also capable of recognize unintended shift. There was also expert feedback for pragmatic refinement was instrumental in guiding students to refine their pragmatic choices when maintaining the illocutionary forces and perlocutionary forces. And students were capable of handling ambiguity, dealing with ambiguous or indirect speech acts such as implicit requests of warnings. This is particularly important in translation where ambiguity can often affect the overall impacts and clarity of the intended message. Implications for the translation studies of this second research: ensuring that students are able to maintain perlocutionary effect is essential for producing effective translations. Translators must be trained to not only focus on linguistic equivalence, but also on the functional impacts of the translations. Thinking about the third of the assessment criteria in the rubric that we presented before, we also extract the third result. Cultural adaptation was another area where students demonstrated a significant improvement. 70% of students showed greater awareness of cultural nuances in translation. Initially, many students overlooked variations in politeness levels. However, through feedback and guided discussions, students refined their ability to adapt speech acts to cultural context of the target language. Key observations, um, which actually go beyond the idea of politeness strategies, handling cultural sensitive topic, justifying translation choices, and I guess the most important one is the flexibility in modifying the speech acts, being able to allowing students to move around different speech acts in different languages and being having this flexibility of languages in their translations. There you have some the implications for translation education. Cultural adaptation is critical in ensuring that translations are not only accurate but also appropriate for the target audience. Training students to understand and navigate cultural differences in politeness, formality, and pragmatics in general can help them produce translations that resonate with the target audience, including tasks that emphasize cultural context and adaptation. To offer a conclusive closure to this presentation, this study explored the integration of speech acts with project-based learning to enhance pragmatic competence in translator training. Results indicate that this approach significantly improved the students' ability to identify speech acts, maintaining perlocutionary effects and adapting translations to cultural contexts. Overall, these projects proved to be an effective method for enhancing translation competence, emphasizing the importance of continuous feedback, cultural awareness, and pragmatic reasoning in translation education. Future research could further refine strategies for handling complex speech arcs and improving engagement with feedback mechanisms. I would like to thank everybody for the attention paid to this communication. I remain open to any possible questions that you may have. And again, many thanks to the organizing of this Congress for allowing me to participate in it. Many thanks.